Hi, everybody. This is Dan Stolbarger. Welcome to this week's Middle East update. It's February 6th. We're going to look back upon the events that's transpired over the last week. And oh, my, what a week it's been, right? We're going to start off with really a call to prayer. We have encouraged all of our viewers to make sure to continue fervent prayer for the release of all the hostages. There was a report out last night from Al Jazeera that sunk many of our hearts. Al Jazeera reported a short time ago that Hamas has agreed to hand over the bodies of, and that's right, I said the bodies of KFIR, Ariel, and Yarden Bibas. It's important to note that Al Jazeera is a state-run Qatar media machine, often citing pro-terror propaganda. So this, even though it was released, the U.S. and Israel officials have not confirmed this at all. But we know last week Yarden Bibas was released, and we asked for special prayer for him. We know that he's home, but we also know his home is missing. And, when we saw the exuberance and the excitement of the women soldiers that were released and family or whatever, when we see Yarden Bibas come through, our hearts continue to sink. And so please, keep Yarden Bibas in your prayer. Keep the Bibas family in your prayer. And in terms of the hostages, what we don't know at this particular time, with all of the noise that's going on with Trump and Bibi and what happened in D.C., which we'll talk about here in a second, what we haven't been given is news of who will be released on Saturday. Now, remember, supposedly there should be 3 male hostages, likely civilians, that are scheduled to be released according to the previous agreement on Saturday, February 8th. And again, the terms by Hamas, or the agreement between Hamas and Israel, is that those names would be provided 24 hours in advance. And so we do not know at this particular time who will be released. And because of everything that has transpired in the Bibi and Donald Trump kind of powwow together, in a sense, we're not sure what impact that's going to have when Trump has come out basically saying we're going to take Hamas and develop it. And like I said, we'll get into that in a moment. So needless to say, at this point in time, please be fervent in your prayers for the release of the hostages. Now, our news bites for this week. Politico, there's a subject for you, reports that Trump will sign an executive order and has for the U.S. to withdraw from UNRWA. No big surprise there, but that's monumental. Trump, this last week, has signed executive orders instructing his Secretary of Treasury to impose what's called maximum economic pressure on Iran. That's going to be phase 1 in attempting to keep Iran from a nuclear weapon. Advisors to Trump tell reporters that Trump and Netanyahu are united behind the idea that Hamas should not be allowed to remain in power after a permanent ceasefire. And that's going to be, once again, when we talk about the release of hostages, at what point in time does Hamas come to the understanding that if they continue to do this, once they get to the end of that road, no more Hamas. We'll have to see what transpires there. And before you shed a tear for the people of Gaza, please remember that they're the ones that created Hamas. They elected Hamas. They supported Hamas. They supplied Hamas. They worked for Hamas. They sheltered Hamas. And they filled its ranks and they celebrated all of its atrocities. So please, no tears for Gaza. On to our major articles. Marco Rubio, our new Secretary of State, in an interview with Megan Riley, when it comes to this, and it's going to come up more and more, this so-called two-state solution. His quote, let me read it to you. As long as there is an organization called Hamas, whose goal is the destruction of the Jewish state and is prepared to commit atrocities against civilians and hold hostages for a year and a half, it is a threat to the national security of the state of Israel. What country can live alongside an armed enemy willing to commit these types of atrocities? That's a big no to a two-state solution. Bibi's checklist. Again, as you know, Bibi is the first foreign visitor or power or governmental official to visit within the first week, 2 weeks of the Trump administration. His checklist. And when you see, if you've watched the videos, he's beaming, but he's still a bit frail from his recent surgery. But he's smiling and chuckling at all of Trump's comments. It was though Trump was checking off all the items that Netanyahu had on his wish list. And again, a deal to bring back all the hostages that won't stop Israel from removing Hamas from Gaza, check. Maximum pressure on Iran, check. Vowing Iran won't get a nuclear weapon, check. Saudi-Israeli normalization, check. Dropping his 2020 call for a Palestinian state, check. Considering Israel annexation of the West Bank, check. And keeping an eye out for as he says, an upcoming announcement. And then we had that announcement of Trump saying, hey, I got an idea. And remember, the definition of insanity is to do something over and over and over and over again, just the same, and assuming there'll be change. And so it seems that Trump has come out and said, let's let the U.S. take over Gaza. Okay, so again, back to this Trump and Bibi powwow. It was yes to the transfer of all Gazans from Gaza. That's his idea. Let's get them all out. And then let's stop Iran from nuclear weapons. No such thing as a Palestinian state. Yes, let's work with Saudi Arabia. And in the midst of all this, all of the Arab channels are just blowing up. They're going crazy. They're in complete shock and feeling that they're completely defeated. Commentators are cursing Trump, and Bibi and others are saying that Iran should immediately attack Israel. So what a week. What a week. This is a report from NBC. It was bad enough last Friday when the BBC referred to Israeli captives, hostages, in Gaza as prisoners. BBC anchor Nikki Schiller said that there are 3 Israeli prisoners that will be released tomorrow, and then 90 Palestinian prisoners will be freed from Israeli jails. But then it gets worse, because keep in mind, they're not prisoners, they're hostages, they're captives. So this few days later, NBC News has once again proven that journalistic integrity takes a back seat when it comes to Israel. And the latest disgraceful lie, NBC headlines referred to Palestinian terrorists with blood on their hands as hostages. Nothing could be further from the truth. blood on their hands, murderers, terrorists, are not hostages. They are the prisoners that are being released. And then, truth be told here, we've heard this over the years from our friends at Palestinian Media Watch, that if there's ever going to be the possibility of a two-state solution, living side by side, the cycle has to be broken, and it has to begin with education of children. So this was just out from the young words from a young terrorist, 8, 9, 10 years old. Again, a quote given: "The coward dies 100 times a day, but the brave dies once after resisting. Death is a privilege." These were the words of a young terrorist in his Telegram profile before he was killed fighting Israel. And yet another example of how a brainwashed Palestinian is anxious to die heroically because he believes that death is a privilege. And then the article goes on to say, convincing young people like this guy, Muhammad Abdul Kishk, that death is to be embraced is how the Palestinian Authority perpetuates a self-sustaining cycle of terrorism, using its official platforms to glorify what? Violence, death, martyrdom, shaheeds. The PA propaganda is so successful that parents even thank Allah for having their children killed. This is where it has to begin if there will ever be an end to this legacy of hate. And then I'm sure there'll be more news. I'm sure you've heard about it, but the last is a couple photos. Trump redrawing Gaza with a mega Gaza or a Magaza. Once again, he has shocked the world. And now we're going to find out what the response was. This just Trump setting the bar so high? Is this just part of the art of the deal that's going on? Is he serious in terms of the U.S. taking on the responsibility of deporting all Gazans and rebuilding Gaza? We'll have to wait and see. The rippling effect that's taking place right now, it's too soon to know who's going to be on board, who's going to jump off the ship, or whatever the case may be. But as I said before, what a week. So that's our report for this week. The last slide here, make sure you grab the PDF PowerPoint. Okay, it should be just a link on the YouTube page that you're watching. And let me encourage you to grab my book. I finished, we are on the second printing of a book that I've written over the last year or two. It seems like it's taken like forever to get it finished, but the book is entitled Random Chapters of a Follower of Jesus. Grab that book. You can get it at our website at holygroundexplorations.com. Read it. It's a short read. And send me your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. So that's it. God bless you, and shalom.